Camera.
It's all good.
All right. Back online, guys. All right. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We won't play the intro and all that stuff again. Let's jump right into it. Welcome, everybody, to Omnic Lab, a podcast focused on the strategies in the game of Overwatch. Today, I'm your host, Andres, aka I Play Games, and I'll be replacing Rob as he's in the middle of finalizing a move over in Japan, and his high speed internet just got cut off. So he is literally off the charts. Nobody knows where he is. With the internet off, he's probably back to the Stone Age at this point. So I wish him the best. But on his place, we have an amazing guest today, returning champion, jack of all trades, and master of all, PvPX. What's up, man?
Hello. I've been on here I think two times before. It's been a while though since we've done this.
Yeah, it's been a minute. We've had you before for our Junkrat episode, as that's how kind of you get made your name back in the day. But
Yep.
since then, you've done a lot of different things. Lately, you've been a little bit on Apex Legends and stuff. I've seen you experiment a little bit of that, and you got signed to Cloud9 as well, right?
Yep.
You want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So I never really wanted to compete professionally in Overwatch. I just saw it as like my fun to play game that I wanted to stream and stuff. But I did want to play pro in something, and when Blackout released, I thought that was it. That was the first battle royale that I really liked, and I wanted to compete, but the game died. And then it's like right when that game died, Apex came out, and I was like, dude, this is it. Like this is the game I want to compete in. And I was scrimming and everything, and I eventually got picked up by Cloud9 to compete and play under them. But it's only been like kill race tournaments. It's not actual like customs, or it's like team versus team versus team
Mm-hmm.
in the same lobby. So I stepped back a little bit. I'm still in Cloud9, but I'm just streaming for them. So my average stream is a bunch of Overwatch content, but still a bunch of Apex content as well.
Nice. You got really good at Apex really, really fast too. Do you
Yeah.
find any resemblance between playing Overwatch as a first person shooter and playing Apex Legends?
Um, Not too much to be honest, but just like teamwork in general. Like I think one of my strongest things in Overwatch is like working well with the team and trying to figure out how to work together and voice communication and stuff like that. And that definitely translated over to Apex because it's teams of three. So like when you can work well with your team and uh like focus together, that helped me a lot.
Absolutely. I was actually watching Shroud, another great Apex Legend player, try Overwatch like a few weeks ago or a few days ago. Sorry, it wasn't very long ago, and it was really interesting because on Apex Legends, I mean, I'm pretty sure you watch him. He looks really good. He's an amazing player.
Yeah,
But then
I
going
played against him
into
quite a bit.
oh, I bet.
Yeah, yeah.
But going into Overwatch, I think he plays like platinum or something like that, which made me feel
Yeah.
great. I was like, oh my god, I plays higher than Shroud Overwatch. Yes, is probably the only
Ye-
time I'll ever beat him. And I'm sure if he dedicated the time into playing the game, he would be like an insane, grandmaster top 500. But it was really interesting watching how the skills don't necessarily translate one to one because his tracking
Mhm.
was there. I mean, his mechanics were still really good. He was playing Soldier 76 and he was clicking
Yeah.
heads, but you need more than that in Overwatch.
I mean, that's why Overwatch is such a great game, right? Because it's more than just like CS:GO aiming. There's so much more to it. Like I've seen when I was watching Shroud play, like he'll play Tracer and he'll pulse bomb a Moira, and then the Moira will fade and not die, and
Right.
he's like, why did that? I used my ultimate on her. Why did she not die? It's like that's why Shroud plays plat, and he's maybe climbed to diamond, but he's not going to hit GM anytime soon because there's so much more in Overwatch. It's so much game sense and so much knowledge that he needs to learn before he
No,
can
absolutely.
climb.
And like he was landing his pulse bombs, like the way he was playing Tracer is not how a Tracer plays Platinum. He was actually playing her like really well mechanically. But yeah,
Hmm.
there's so much more to understand in the game that even if you are a mechanical prowess, if you're not reading those little clues in the game, if you're not using your cooldowns right or targeting the right people at the right time, you're just not gonna make any progress. He was hitting a brick wall in a lot of his games where he was asking like, "Oh, I don't know what do I do. I feel like I'm popping off." And yet
Yeah.
we can't capture the point. And I feel like a lot of us have suffered that frustration But I don't know. It's interesting to watch somebody who's so mechanically good struggle at the game because he hasn't put in time to, learn those other things.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes you appreciate people like him can struggle in Overwatch too. Like it makes you appreciate Overwatch as a game. Is like there's really a lot going on to it. It's a fun game to learn.
Yeah, if Shroud could struggle in Overwatch, I feel so much
Yeah,
better struggling too.
yeah, exactly.
No, I feel you. So right now, what are you playing the most, Overwatch or Apex?
It's probably 50-50 to be honest. I think there's frustrations with both games. My biggest frustration with Apex right now is there's a lot of cheaters, especially in the high rank games. And also during like the morning time, I have to play EU servers because there's not enough people high rank. Queue times are really long, and it's kind of hard to find a good group to play with. Um, so I find myself playing a lot more Overwatch during like the non-prime times. But I do love Apex a lot, and whenever I have a good group that I want to play with, and during prime time, like dinner time, I will play a lot of Apex as well. So I just bounce back and forth between the two.
Nice. Before we move on into some of the other topics, because we will be talking about Sigma, of course, the newest hero, some of the one of the coolest heroes that I think that Blizzard has released in the past few years. We'll be talking all about that. But I did want to ask you a little bit about 222 role lock and some of the changes that have been coming to Overwatch. Because we were talking about it on your stream earlier today, how Overwatch seems like it finally got a lot of the changes that people have been asking for a while. And I know that you were an avid Overwatch streamer when Overwatch first launched, and you were like all in into the game. And like it happened to a lot of other people, you kind of burned down on Overwatch for a bit, and you were playing some other games. But I feel like these changes have brought a lot of people like you and some other personalities a little bit back into the game. So, what do you think about some of these changes, and what have been your impressions playing in the PTR?
Um, I guess my first like reaction to Rollock and 222 was actually really negative. I didn't think it was going to be a good thing. I wasn't looking forward to it. I think my biggest like con that I saw was people like for example like queuing DPS and doing what they do now and not working with the team because right now you can kind of get away with running like ball and triple DPS. So let's say you have like a Genji one trick and a Torb one trick, then I can go like Widow or McCree to counter their Fair Mercy because we can have 3 DPS. But in 222, if we get the Genji one trick and the Torb one trick as our DPS and the other team goes Fair Mercy, there's only so much you can do as a support player and tank player to try and win the game, and that you can't swap roles. So it's like, okay, well, that sucks. But after trying out PTR, and also I watched a really good video that Monte Cristo made on YouTube. It's like a 45-minute video of him
Mm-hmm.
talking about
I
rookie
think I
and
saw it
stuff.
too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he compares it to like League of Legends. He really convinced me otherwise that it's still super good to just get structure in the game for a lot of different reasons, for like balance reasons. I think at heart people play Overwatch because they like certain heroes and certain roles. So it's going to want to get people to want to work together more because they get to play what they want to play, and it's going to want to get people to want to improve more at what they play. So maybe people who one trick might want to learn some other characters to get better at their role because they might help them climb some more and stuff. And I don't know, playing PTR a lot, I've been enjoying it. Like people, it's crazy because PTR doesn't even matter. Like your rank
Right.
doesn't matter, but people have been trying so hard. They've actually been really trying to work together and win the game. So
They have.
yeah,
I'm one of those people actually. We started playing PTR with a group of friends that we normally six stack and we all this stuff. And right away, you could tell that everyone was super interested in knowing
hmm
what their different SRs were in different roles. And it was a cool experiment because before you kind of had this amalgamation of ranks and you truly didn't know like where you were standing on the different roles. But now you have that division and you can see like, oh wow, my
yeah,
tank's actually really good. This one's really good. And people were all over the place. We had some people that were super high in certain roles, like almost grandmaster, but then were like platinum in the other role. Then we had some
yeah,
people that were like very even across the board, just same role on all the roles. So you can kind of see where people have put in their time and their effort. And I thought it was a cool little thing to see and to try out. And not only that, the games felt so much more consistent in general, to the point where now when I go into the live version of the game, I almost don't want to do it. It seems
Yeah,
like an unruly, lawless land. That game. I want to go back to the
yeah.
PTR where there's order.
More structure, yeah. I was playing
Yeah.
PTR. I was playing PTR for a few hours the other day, and then I went to live server. And my first game, I had 5 support mains on my team, and
Oof.
we got pummeled. We had to defend first. They pushed all 3 points, and then we had to attack, and we couldn't even cap the first one. And I was like, dude, why are we losing so bad? And I went through everyone's profile, and there's like 2 private profiles, but they were on support. So I was like, why? Like, we have 5 support mains. Well, like, this game was decided before it even started. Like, you don't want to see that. You don't want five
Yeah,
support mains on
now
your
you
team.
won't have that. If any of those support
Yeah.
mains wants to play any other role, they'll be ranked accordingly in a game where,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
won't
Yeah.
feel like, they're dragging everyone down, and they feel like they'll be able to contribute as well.
hmm
Um do you feel like there's any downsides to this new system?
Well, yeah, what I mentioned before with like one tricks or people not even just like one trick specifically, maybe someone who isn't playing efficient on their role, they don't have the ability to swap off of it or you can't take it from them. So I kind of would like to see them change things slightly. So in between rounds, you might be able to swap roles with a teammate. I don't think you can do that right now in PTR, but that'd be kind of cool if you could do that. Like maybe in between rounds on King of the Hill, you could swap roles. Uh,
I could be that interesting option, like a vote or something, where you can vote to like
yeah,
swap roles, and enough people vote yes, or if the two people
or
agree, you can just kind of like
yeah,
swap your
exactly. You can
roles or
just
something.
trade. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool to. And also like maps change, so maybe some people are good at certain characters. That would be according to whatever map. Like you have some people who like they like Hammond and they like Anna, so maybe one map they play Anna and the next map they play Hammond on King of the Hill or something, or like on attack versus defense. So
And I think so far that's the best argument that I've heard against 222, and not even against, but just pointing out a drawback. I think that it is a little bit sad that some people have their skill sets very spread out in very many different roles. And
yeah,
you're right. For some maps, they're really good at this particular hero. They've like maybe there's a Lucio map where they've practiced all the boops, all the wall rides, and they're just really good at that map. But in some other map, they're just like an amazing Pharah or something.
exactly. Yeah.
That person won't be able to exploit their skills like they could before, and it's gonna have to develop now different skills, more narrow skills that are only in a particular role, right?
But
Go
yeah,
ahead.
but like a counter argument against what I just said is like now in a structured environment, it might get people to now step out of their comfort zone and start learning more fine tuned into the role that they're supposed to be playing. So it might get people to actually start getting better at the game at what they're supposed to be doing. So
I
like
think so.
learn more characters or stuff.
And honestly, I think that for Overwatch, it's good to be well rounded. It's good for you to
hmm
know a lot of different roles, because until you get to play a little bit of everything and know what every kind of role has to do, at least in a proficient way, then you get to get a full picture, right? And you get to understand the game at a different level, I think, where in a more macro sense, where you know what your tanks should be doing, you know what your healers should be doing, you know what the
Yeah,
DPS should be doing, and that it's a little more clear. And I feel like Overwatch is such a hectic game that being able to discern all of that information fast and being able to know what everyone needs to be doing at the same time, it's a huge advantage, I think.
exactly. Yep.
All right. So overall, you give the 222 a thumbs up.
Yeah, I give it a huge thumbs up. I think it's gonna be really good for the game, just for so many different reasons, like just simple structure, balancing of lobbies for players, and balancing of characters in general. Yep, I think it's
Yeah,
awesome.
regardless of the drawbacks, I think that the positives just like hugely outweigh him. We're getting a lot of consistency, and I personally can't wait for the PTR to go into the live servers, and we can finally have this new
Yeah,
Overwatch.
I'm the only thing I'm upset about is that it comes August 13th, and I'm going on vacation August 12th for 10 days, so I'll be
Oh
gone.
man, you're gonna miss the very start.
I'll, I'll be gone for 9 days when it comes out.
You're gonna have to
Uh,
make up the lost time when you get back.
yeah, I'm absorbing PTR while I can. I
Yeah.
haven't been able to play DPS though. I waited in a 45-minute queue today for DPS and I didn't find a game.
Oh my
I
god.
I
Well,
gave up.
you're playing at like top 500.
Yeah, it's 4400 SR,
Oh
so
yeah,
that's
I feel
pretty good,
really
right?
bad for you, because
Yeah.
honestly, if anyone's gonna suffer from that problem, is probably gonna be the higher echelon, and that's something else that
Yeah.
we might have to consider. We'll see how those queues end up going for you guys up there, because I feel for the majority of the people, it won't be that long.
Yeah. And you can't six stack in GM. You can only duo. So it's not like I could six stack to shorten my queues or anything like that. So
Oh,
we'll
right.
see.
Yeah, you can make up your teams, which is a problem I don't have because usually I can just find people around my rank and it's just, all
Yeah,
right, let's
exactly.
go.
Yeah, I'm hoping now that they have 222 and Roadlock that they come out with a structured team queue, like a 6v6
Even for
queue.
higher ranks.
Yeah, I was
I think
thinking
it's a
like,
shame that you can't queue as a six stack at higher ranks because I feel like
yeah.
that almost it's like the essence of the game.
Well, the reason they did it is because a lot of people were abusing it by queuing during like off hours and just getting free wins because the matchmaking system couldn't find balanced lobbies, so they would match you against like diamonds when you're GM and you just get
Right.
free wins and yeah. But I was thinking
Maybe
like
they
if
have
they
to open
do,
up during like only a certain hours.
yeah,
Six
exactly,
stack
yeah,
queue between 6 p.m. and 10
yeah,
p.m.
yeah.
every night.
They could do like structured time zones, or they could do like special days, like on weekends. They could do like team queue. I think it'd be really awesome to see if they came
Honestly,
out with
that
that.
could be a really cool event for them to make so that at these times
Exactly, yeah,
like
like
that
an event,
happen, so
yeah.
everyone knows that at those times that's when they come together and form the six stacks. Because honestly,
Hmm.
forming a six stack in the middle of the week, like in a random day, is not as easy, right? You have to get six people on the same page. But if Blizzard is releasing a schedule and like do it during these times, that might actually be really cool.
Yep, yep, exactly. That's what I'd like to see.
All right, Blizzard, listen up. You know, these are some good ideas right here. That being said, let's jump into Sigma. A couple housekeeping stuff right before we talk about it. Though game night this month is happening on the 30th of August, guys. The game night on July already happened. We had a cozy small game night this time, but we were all playing on the PTR. It was really fun. Tons of Sigma play. Tons of people getting lifted up in the air and thrown into the ground. Very, very cool. So if you guys want to be a part of that, make sure you come next month, August 30th in the Omnic Lab Discord. Also, for the patrons at the $2.50, thank you guys so much for signing up. And make sure you guys reach out to us to schedule your coaching sessions. This month has been pretty good. It started a little slow with the Atlanta homestand coming in. I wasn't available for the first half of the month, but a lot of you have reached out. This weekend, I'm already booked completely for coaching sessions. So if you guys haven't reached out for this month, make sure you do next week. And if not, the first week of August is always good. But make sure you guys are checking that out because a lot of you have joined the tier, and it makes me super happy that I get to meet so many of you, coach so many of you. Rob is also super, super happy. So keep it up and, keep in touch. Couple of sponsors, Top Score Solutions. Check out Top Score Solutions over at topscoresolutions.com. If you're a developing business, service, or organization, or trying to do content and are looking for an esports oriented community that also offers business education and analytics, they run a Discord by the same name, Top Score Solutions. And check out omnicmeta.com. Omnic Meta for all your up to date stats on your personal performance. Also, Overwatch League and in depth meta analysis. Switch is doing some cool stuff with all kinds of data. You can check your own performance from week to week, from day to day, session to session, see if you're performing as well as you thought, and kind of keep track of what you should be improving on. That being said, let's jump into the important stuff. Sigma. What are your first thoughts of this hero, dude? This is an insane tank, and when I say insane, I mean literally insane.
Yeah, I mean the character personality itself and like the how he looks and stuff and the story is awesome. I definitely really appreciate that because what first got me into the game was Junkrat itself, like not even just playing him, just like him as a character was so cool, so I just started playing. They did a good job on that and like releasing the character. I like that it was a main tank. They came out with a new one and it was unique to the others, which is probably going to be harder and harder and harder for them to do in the future. So they did a really good job at that. And my initial thoughts playing him is he's really fun. So that's also another good thing. And he's not annoying. I mean, I guess every character can be annoying to some extent, but he's not like a
Depends on who
Brig
you
or a
talk
Sombra.
to. Yeah, depends on who you talk
Yeah,
to. But you're
he's
right.
not
This
like a
this
Brig
one
or a
hasn't been
Sombra.
as
So
alienating. Yeah. So the other
yeah,
things that have been introduced, like Hammond, can be very alienating depending on who you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise with Orisa. I too really like the introduction of this character. I think that flavor wise, it's been one of the more interesting characters added to the story. It has a very
Yeah.
ominous, very chilly, very unsettling vibe to him, right? Like the
Yeah.
whole "what is this melody" kind of thing, and you don't know if like the guy is conscious or unconscious, whether he's doing this because he wants to or not. Like who's controlling this man? Like I don't know. So much mystery behind it, and a very eerie introduction. So just flavor wise, this character is ticking the boxes for me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about gameplay wise, though, as his role? You mentioned that you were surprised that they were able to make him unique, and I kind of agree with you. When I'm trying to think of other main tanks that they can come up with, I was kind of struggling thinking of one that like wouldn't repeat kind of what we already have. And this one
Yep.
sort of combines a little bit of everything, or not a little bit of everything, but kind of like has a different flavor on the barrier cell tank. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I'm really happy they came out with something that's it's kind of like he's like in between a Winston and a Ryan kind of, I guess, because he can contest like far the way or far away, and also he can like hold ground where he's at.
Right. He's like a Ryan. I feel like he's like a Ryan Orisa because you have like Ryan
Yeah,
Shield, but you can deploy it kind of like you do Orisa,
yeah.
but it
He's like a
has
little bit
more
of everything.
flexibility. You can move it kind of like you do with Ryan.
Hmm. I guess one of the biggest things I was happy about was they made it so he's this was something I like to see with Hammond because Hammond is not really defined as a main tank or an off tank, and I feel like Sigma kind of has that appeal as well, whereas he can play with his secondary tank, he could play with other main tanks, and he can also play with other off tanks, and his role will interchange depending on the characters that he plays with. So like if he plays with Orisa, he kind of is like the off tank, and if he plays with Zarya, he's the main tank. So his play style changes a lot depending on comp and map and stuff. So definitely happy to see that.
I think that he's such an interesting hero because of the way that you can use his abilities. The shield placement is something that we haven't seen before, and it allows you to
Hmm.
get some like really interesting angles and block parts of the map that you couldn't block before. One of the things I really like when I was playing on the PTR and on last game night for Omnic Lab was that there was an enemy widow and the enemy team, and I was able to basically place the shield on her face almost on every angle that she would
Just
come
know,
from,
yeah,
and basically eliminating that angle completely because it's not even that the shield is right in front of you. No, the shield is right in front of her. So unless she would like jump off the ledge or literally go to like a different one, she had no way of like going past the
yeah.
shield. Since you can move it so often, even if she repositioned, it was like, oh, okay, well, let me bring it back and like put it in your face again.
Yeah, it's so good because he can constantly move his shield wherever he wants. He can change positions, but he can also be doing damage while doing that. So like Reinhardt, his flaw is that he can hold shield and he can move it, but while he's doing that, he can't be doing damage. So Sigma is kind of like a little bit more of an offensive Reinhardt, where but he loses like a little bit of shield because he has 500 less shield, but
Hmm.
he can like reposition, play defensive while also doing damage at the same time. And another thing that's good about him is he's a really high skill character that can
Yes.
get more and more value depending on how good you get with him, which I like to see a lot. Because like my first reaction playing him was like you have to really learn the tempo of the character and play around his shield and like remember to recall the shield so it starts regenning. He's actually a really difficult character to get a hang of right away.
So a lot of his abilities are what I call a skill shot, right? You can't just throw him out there and they do a thing. You have
Mm-hmm.
to most of them aim him and throw him in the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
predict, have some sort of timing. Is not set and forget like some sort of other ability, right?
Yep.
Even his shield that he has is a time limit, not the main barrier that he has, but his shift ability that we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about in a little bit that absorbs damage
We
has
can
a
just call it
very
Matrix.
yeah, Matrix.
It's
Yeah,
Matrix.
it's
Yeah,
basically
yeah,
Matrix 2.0.
yeah.
Yeah, but much smaller range, much smaller angle at which you can swallow things, and you're still sort of vulnerable from behind and the sides, right, as you're doing it. So you
Hmm.
have to be very mindful of where you're using it, aiming in the right direction. So even that is not the easiest, most straightforward thing to use, I feel.
Yeah. If there's one thing I'd like to see changed about that ability, if Sigma becomes like not very good, I'd like to make it so when you absorb damage with that ability, it not only gives you health, but it also regens your shield. I think that'd be pretty
Oh,
cool. I thought that's what it
that
did
would be
at
even
first,
more
and
useful than what it is right now because it gives you
yeah,
like a small amount of shields, but I feel like the shields are not like
yeah.
super meaningful most of the time.
Hmm. If it could help, if it healed your shield a little bit too, that'd be kind of cool. So it allow him to have more uptime depending on like the skill of how well you eat damage and stuff. But it all depends on like how good Sigma is. My initial reaction to Sigma is that he will be good, but he's not going to be insane. And I think some major flaws with him is that he takes self damage, which is like what Junkrat used to have.
He takes
Um,
self damage from what?
his primary fire and also his boulder.
Oh,
Um,
really? You can take self damage
yeah.
from your own little spheres?
Yep. And it's actually a big
Oh,
deal because Winston jumps on you, you kill yourself, and it's kind of the same thing that used to happen with Junkrat.
no
Junkrat used to
way,
do self
dude.
damage.
I had no
Yeah.
idea that you
Mm-hmm.
damaged yourself with the spheres. I didn't even notice
And
when I was playing him because most of the time the spheres are not bouncing back towards you unless, yeah, you're like in a
yeah,
Winston
unless
bubble or
they're
something.
yeah, if you're shooting like a Brig or a Rhine or a Winston that's on you, you take self damage, and it's a big deal
Oh,
because he only has 400 health and he doesn't have armor, and also if he gets discorded, he just gets deleted. So he's
yeah.
super vulnerable to dive. If there aren't other characters that can protect him from dive, dive is just gonna kill him. I mean, the characters that he goes well with are like Zarya, and I mean Sigma Zarya. I don't think are gonna be that great versus dive. It depends on how impactful Brig is, maybe, but Brig got completely changed on PTR, so she's like less oppressive and she's more of a support. So I don't know if she's going to be really enough to be able to stop dive. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, we'll see how she fits into the meta. Definitely, Brig is right now a huge question mark because her style got reworked so much, and people haven't had a chance to really experiment with her and see her new true potential. But at least as playing the old Brig, that's out of the question. Like you cannot play
Yeah.
Brig the good old way. So yeah, we'll see how that ends up turning out. Let's talk about how. And now that you're talking about all this stuff, how does Sigma fit into the tank roster? When do you want to bring Sigma? And you mentioned that he works really well with Zarya because she can shore up one of his weaknesses, which is he's a flimsy tank that doesn't
Hmm.
have a lot of ways to defend himself if he gets overrun, right, or jumped into.
Yeah. I think so I think he has a lot of versatility, and his play style is obviously going to change depending on the characters that you have. Uh, two tanks that step out like come out a lot that I see that he'll be played with. There's Orisa and Zarya, and if he's played with Orisa, I think that you're gonna need um some like high damage like bunker style DPS and stuff because Orisa and Sigma offer a lot of shield cover, and you can also block the enemy Roadhog hook. Like if the Orisa pulls up, Sigma can block the hook or the pull, either one. So that's really good.
With his own barrier, right? Or you're talking about
Yeah,
with his kinetic grasp?
with his own barrier.
Yeah.
So like the basically the meta right now is you throw the pull above the shield and then the hog hooks. A lot of people are running May to block that right now, but you can also do that with Sigma. So like
Right.
I don't know. It depends on what the other team is running, but if that becomes a thing like Orisa Sigma, the other team basically has two choices. They either run a really really high damage comp to try to break both shields, or they just don't run damage and they run dive and they just try to ignore the shields. But if they do like an in between, like half damage to the shields, half dive, you're not gonna be doing that well against a comp like that.
Yeah, it is like super, super good with the shields. And one other thing that Sigma really complements Orisa with is that he can place his shields um, perpendicular or up in the
Hmm.
sky, right? Like he can block the one angle
Yeah.
that Orisa can't block and is right above
Yeah.
her, or in like aerial angles, right? He can put those
Yeah.
diagonals and you can block key areas that Afera might be trying to sneak in her rockets in, or again, just trying to put in his poke damage. Junkrat is trying to bounce his grenades for, above Orisa. You can really block that key point that she struggles with. So now she
Yep.
doesn't get a tent, or she doesn't get a bunker. She gets a tent, A
Yeah,
full
exactly.
apartment now she gets.
Yeah. And then the other one is Zarya that I mentioned. The tempo of like a Sigma and Zarya is going to be more aggressive because you're not going to be wanting because Sigma doesn't really if Sigma is playing the role of the main tank, he doesn't really have like a lot of shield uptime because he only has 1500 shield. Reinhardt has 2000, for example. So once your shield gets broken, you got to wait a long time for it to regen all the way up. So like you kind of like you put shield up, you earn a little position, then you call it back before it gets destroyed. Then you pop Zarya bubble, you push up a little bit, create pressure. Then once Zarya bubble's popped, you put your shield back up a little again. So you kind of want to like learn the tempo of pushing with a comp like that. I think Lucio might fare really well with those style of tanks because it'll allow the speed boost will allow them to push position or retreat from position quicker. Um, and will
I
also
I will say that the times that I played it with Zarya and Lucio were the times that I felt the best. That I felt
mhm,
like I had some room to breathe. I could really play aggressively and play kind of like how I wanted to play. Like the Lucio really complements him, kind of like he complements Reinhardt because he is
yeah.
as low as Reinhardt and Orisa. So being able to get around for him is a huge deal.
Yeah, he has no mobility besides his
Zero.
ultimate.
Even
So you can
Reinhardt has his
oh
dash,
yeah.
right? So he can at
Yeah, yeah,
least use
charge,
that.
yeah.
But this guy has nothing.
Yep. And I think another tank I thought about what might be really good is Diva because Diva is kind of like Zarya. She has the Matrix to protect him. And also Diva can contest high ground. So unlike Zarya, Zarya can't like if you do Sigma Zarya, you can't contest high ground. So let's say like Numbani on attack, right? You're probably not going to be wanting to do Sigma Zarya because like you can't do anything on the high ground. But maybe Sigma Diva might be okay a little bit because Diva can go high ground with the DPS,
Hmm.
and Sigma can still get value because Sigma's ranged DPS. Whereas like you never see Reinhardt on attack Numbani because what is Reinhardt supposed to do? Whereas Sigma might be able to get something done because he can
Yeah.
shield up there and he can attack up there,
And
and
his
then yeah.
range is actually really decent. It's definitely very
Hmm.
medium range, but it reaches a good amount. And I've noticed that one of the best things about his attack is that the orbs explode at the end of
Hmm.
it. So he's a fantastic corner checker. Like when
Yep.
Widowmaker or McCree are trying to hide around the corner or behind that door, you just throw it at
Yeah.
the door and you still hit him. Or that
And they do a
Zenyatta
lot
is
of
trying to
damage
hide.
too.
Yeah, they do a lot of damage.
120. It's like a Junkrat. It does 120. Well, Junkrat
If
does
you hit them both,
130
right?
now, but
Or if you hit them
yeah,
both,
they do
it's
60
120.
each.
Yeah.
Yep, it's 60 each. Yep. So
Actually,
you could two shot squishies.
oh yeah, if they're already hurt a little bit,
Yep.
they're definitely dying. Let's talk about the abilities real quick because I feel like we keep mentioning a lot of them. And for those of you who maybe haven't played the hero or are not too familiar with them, let's just describe him real quick. His primary fire, his main attack, or left click is the hyperspheres. It is what we were just talking about. They deal 60 damage each, and you throw two of them up in the air. They travel in a straight line. They do bounce if they hit anything, and they explode at the very end in an area damage. So it does 60 damage in an area. And I don't believe it has any fall off when they explode, right? It's just 60
No.
damage regardless of
It,
where it hits you.
yeah, it's like no. No, they do have if they don't direct hit, they don't do full damage.
Okay, so you do
Okay.
want to hit him more towards the middle.
Yeah, yeah. You do want to get a you want to try to get a direct hit with the spheres.
Cool, cool, cool. The next one is the experimental barrier, which is the ability we've been talking about the most extensively. That is his alternative fire or his right click. And it's his huge barrier, the Reinhardt like shield that has about 1500 health points, or not about, it has exactly 1500 health points. You can redeploy it. The way it works is as long as you're holding your right click, the barrier will continue to move forward. You'll just like levitate it in front of you and it just move in a straight line in front of you until you stop holding the button and then it'll come to that dead stop. So that's how you can position it. It has a huge range. Have you tried testing to see if it has a max range or can you just
And
keep going
I
indefinitely?
I believe it has infinite range. Like if you shoot it straight up in the sky, it'll just keep going until
Oh, cool. So
yeah.
as long as it doesn't hit anything though, because if the barrier
Hmm.
does hit a wall, it does come to a stop.
The center of the barrier. So like
The
if
center of
you
the barrier, right?
yeah, yeah. So you can actually clip through walls a little bit, but the center has to be like not hitting anything.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I wish they had an indicator on that. You know how like Reinhardt has like the marker in the middle of his shield, I think? Maybe he
Oh yeah,
doesn't. I
he
can't
has
remember.
the lion crest,
The
right?
sigil, right? Yeah, like the
Yeah.
line thing. I
Yeah, yeah,
wish they
yeah.
had that for Sigma because you can't really tell where the center of the barrier is besides just like kind of looking at the center.
That'll be
There's
useful.
no real marker.
And that's a good thing to know too, because if you are in a place where you're a little bit behind walls, but you can still see the other side, as long as you place your cursor in the space in between the walls, the barrier will be able to bypass the walls and go
Yeah,
through.
kind of like Orisa that can be used a lot too, like
Mm-hmm.
especially walls.
Let's talk a little bit about how the barrier feels, especially the deployment, because compared it to Reinhardt, for example, when you press the barrier, it comes out immediately and you're blocking. With this one, you sort of have to hold it for a slight second before the barrier
Yeah,
comes out, right? Because not only, like if you press it if you just tap it, he'll just raise his hand, but nothing will come out. You have to hold it for at least like a millisecond before it comes out. Um, what do you think? What do you think of that? Because it was throwing me off a little bit when I was first learning the hero.
I I mean, I imagine they made that intentional. I wish it wasn't like that. That's something I want to see change. Like if you just tap right click, it'll just pop up in front of you. I don't know if they plan on changing that or not, but it is kind of annoying because you like sometimes you might like hold for a millisecond too long and it goes a little bit too far. But I don't know. I guess it's just an acquired skill to get it perfectly placed.
Yeah, once you start getting used to it, it doesn't feel too bad. But I do wish that maybe there was an option. Yeah, like tap to deploy, and it just does
Yeah,
it at like the minimum distance if you just tap it, and then if you hold it, it'll do it the normal way. Or maybe
I
they can
agree.
add it
Yeah,
as an option because maybe they did it this way to not make it overly complicated, especially for people trying to learn the hero, right? But maybe if you've been playing the hero for a while, it could be one of those options that you can toggle where it's just like, tap to deploy or something.
yeah, that would be nice to see. I agree. It is a little frustrating when you're like trying to put down a shield and it's like there's like a pause and then it goes a little bit too far. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that because this does happen constantly when you're playing the hero. If they're too close in front of you, it's very easy to overshoot your barrier to the point where it's
Hmm.
past them, and at that point it's kind of useless. And
Yeah.
it's awful because then you've wasted animation time deploying a barrier that won't work, right?
You know what I've been doing on PTR is actually like if someone's really close to me, I'll look backwards and shoot the shield behind me and then walk past it. So there's like a little bit of
Oh,
space between us and I could still use it for cover. Um,
interesting.
so I don't know, that's something I've kind of been doing, testing a
No,
little bit to
that's
see.
cool. And honestly, that's the sort of thing that you have to start developing with a hero like this, where you notice like these are some of the drawbacks of his abilities. So like how can you change your playstyle to play around those
Yeah.
drawbacks, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I want to mention about this barrier, and it's something that you have to keep in mind when you're playing it too, is once you deploy the barrier, if you click it again, he'll recall the barrier. So rather than like redeploying a new barrier and the previous one disappearing, you recall the previous barrier and then you can redeploy it again. So if the barrier is already deployed and you want to deploy a new one, you can hold the mouse button for him to grab it and then redeploy it, but it does take a little bit longer than if you were just deploying the barrier without recalling. And it's something that caught me off guard a little bit when I was playing him because I would forget to recall my barrier. It would be like said, like maybe way behind me. I would forget to recall it. And then when I wanted to redeploy it again, it would have that extra delay, which can
Yeah.
prove lethal in certain situations.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things because the shield only starts regenning when you have it recalled. So I think a lot of like bad Sigma players or new Sigma players will forget to recall the shield, and then their shield will be off in the middle of nowhere at 100 health, and it
Yeah,
won't be replenishing.
yeah.
So that's a mistake I saw
That's
myself
me.
doing a
That's me
lot.
right there. That I made that
Yeah,
mistake.
I'll get into the next fight and I'll be like, oh fuck, I forgot to recall my shield, and it's at 100 health, and I'll throw it out, and I'll be like, oh no, dude, and
Yeah,
then you just get rolled.
definitely shield management and shield recall are gonna be like
Hmm.
a big thing with Sigma for if you want to become a good Sigma player, it's something you have to keep in mind all the time.
Yep.
Anything else you want to mention about the barrier?
Uh, No, not really. I mean, if someone doesn't completely understand what it really is right now, it's kind of like the Symmetra shield that she had for a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Um,
comparison. Except that
yeah,
you control when it stops. The
yeah,
symmetra
you
shield would
can
kind of just would keep going on forever, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's where they had the idea from. I think that's
yeah.
probably where they got it.
Yeah, that would make sense. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they use the same code for the symmetra
Yeah,
shield.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um, and it does go about the speed of a charging Reinhardt. And I've seen that in a couple of videos. Some people have put it out there. If your Reinhardt's charging and you deploy the barrier in front of him, you can
Yeah.
follow. You can follow him. Like the barrier can be in front of you the whole time.
I tried to do that play on PTR, and the Sigma on my team paused the shield, and I was like, kept charging, and the shield was behind me, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Why did you pause the shield?
Do it at your own risk.
Yeah, I trusted my team, and I died for it.
That's funny. Sigma does have a secondary shield. Let's talk about this one. It's called Kinetic Grasp. And this one is more of the Matrix style shield that we're talking about. It resembles more of Diva Matrix. It has a 2-second duration and a 13-second cooldown. And the angle at which it can eat things is a little bit more narrow than Diva is. It can basically eat things directly in front of you, but nothing behind you and nothing on the sides. And can they headshot you from the front if they're like
I
high
don't think
enough or
so.
something? Okay, so it does cover your head at least.
I'm not sure actually, and I mean, if they're directly above you, they probably can. But like at an angle, I don't. Probably not.
Okay, so as long as it's in front of you, you are probably safe. Now, there's a
Yeah.
few things that this doesn't eat. Just like Matrix, it won't eat any beam type damage. So no Zarya, primary fire, no Symmetra beam. It won't eat things like May. So nothing like that. And anything that's like physical, I think, like
Yeah. No
a Doomfist
melees.
punch or no melee. It won't need Sigma's other ability,
The
the
boulder.
accretion, the boulder. Yeah, we'll talk about that later, but it won't eat that either. So don't be trying to eat Sigma's boulder because you're in for a bad time.
It can eat grav though. I know on the release of the character, Siegel was streaming and he was talking to Jeff Kaplan live, and Jeff said that you couldn't eat grav, but that was a lie because you can.
So
Everyone
you
was
can't,
confused.
because you
I
can
was
eat
confused
the
too.
snowball too from Maid, like her ultimate, the projectile, and
Yeah,
I think that
you
it
can
can
eat
eat Hanzo's
ultimates.
arrow before it
Yeah,
explodes into the dragon.
yeah, and I think I don't know if they made that intentional or not because I was so confused because when Jeff was talking to Siegel, he said that they had a moment of regret when they allowed Diva to allow or to when they allowed Diva to eat ultimates with Matrix, and he was saying that like they regretted like allowing that, like making that a thing, and he made it seem like Sigma couldn't, and turns out Sigma can eat all these ultimates too. So I don't know.
You know,
I
it's
don't
a
know.
slippery slope. Once you allow one person, then the next also has to do it too.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's a very powerful ability though, and it's an ability that can bail you out of a lot of bad situations. Like we've said before, Sigma only has 400 HP, and he does seem rather weak when a lot of people focus him down, and he has no way of defending himself, like no barrier or
Yeah.
no way of protecting. He can die quite quick, and this is one way to mitigate that. Interestingly enough, though, it has some funky interactions. Like it blocks Roadhog hook. You cannot be
Yeah.
hooked if you're getting hit by this, but you can get pushed back by Brigitte whip shot.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that one. I knew about the Roadhog hook though. Did you mention that you gain health for the
I
shift?
haven't mentioned that. You want to cover that?
Yeah. So for every bit of damage that you take, let's say you take someone, let's say a Junkrat shoots you with, or let's say a Hanzo shoots you with a full charge arrow for 120 damage. You absorb all of that damage and convert 40% of it to bonus health. So it's kind of like a Zarya, but it goes to health instead. And the health is kind of like Doomfist. When you know how Doomfist does damage, he gains these like bonus shields and then they deplete over time. It's the same thing as that. So let's say if the Hanzo shoots you with a 120 damage arrow, you'll gain 40 extra shields for a certain amount of time and then it'll slowly go away. And I think he can eat up to a certain amount of
I
damage.
think a maximum is 400 damage that he can
Okay,
eat.
maybe yeah, maybe he can eat more than
Or
that, but
no,
that's
yeah,
the max amount of health he can gain.
yeah. He gets 400 max shields, so he can
Yeah.
eat up to that amount of damage. So whatever 400 is 40% of.
Yeah,
That's the maximum
yeah,
amount
I'm
of
not.
damage that he can eat.
I
I
can,
can do some math
we
here
need a
in the
quick.
back.
We need a quick math real quick. Is it like 4,000 or something? I don't even know. Probably not that. It's probably like a thousand, I guess. I'm not sure. I mean, that makes
I think it
sense,
would be
right?
like
Is it 1,000? Because 40% of 1,000 is 400. Is that right? That
s-
would be right, right?
yes, actually, it is 1,000 damage. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. I just don't know if he can eat more than 1,000 damage, and it just caps out at 400. That's something I haven't tested or known yet. So
Now it's hard to eat 1,000 damage. I feel like it's hard to get the
yeah, of
maximum
course.
amount of shields from it. Most of the time that I've
Yeah.
used it, I've been using it to sort of deflect key abilities like the hook or maybe like the
Mm-hmm.
annonade coming at you. Or
Yeah.
when my shield breaks
I mean,
down and I have to like get to a wall, I'll use it right then and there.
yeah. Most of the time, you're using the ability to save your own butt and just
Yeah.
to like get around a corner. You're not necessarily trying to gain like 800 health or whatever, 400 extra health. It just kind of happens sometimes.
Because trust me, I did try it. What you can do, so a good way to test this out is you can put up your shield and stand right behind it and wait till everybody starts focusing down your shield. You can bring down the shield and just do your kinetic grasp, and those were the times where I was able to get the most charge out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But still, the amount of shields that I got were basically destroyed almost instantly the
Yeah.
second I got him. Technically, you can double your health from this if you are eating a lot of damage from it. So it can save you, but it's very temporary. This is not an ability that you can rely for a huge amount of sustain. It's kind of like a Zarya bubble in that sense. It'll last
Yeah.
for those 2 seconds and it'll give you temporary invincibility for there. But also, your hands are tied, literally. One of your hands is doing the grasp, so you can't use your orbs anymore. So you can't attack and you can't deploy your barrier while this is happening. So you have to be
You also
mindful.
you also
Go ahead.
can't cancel it.
You can't cancel it either. And a few times it
Yeah.
happened to me that I used it at the wrong times, and you feel like a fool because no damage is
Mm-hmm.
coming in. You can't do any other actions, and by the time it's done, you basically accomplish nothing.
Yeah, I kind of just use it as like a get out of jail free card. Like if I'm in a super bad spot and I need to retreat, I usually just do that.
Let's talk about Accretion, his boulder ability. The boulder ability is pretty interesting. Is a projectile that you pull from the earth, or you basically form in your hands and then throw it. It's a slow projectile, so it's easy to react to. But that being said, it's not that
It's really
hard to
big.
land either. It's a very big projectile. So if they're
Yeah.
relatively close to you, especially tanks, you can land it pretty reliably. It acts as a mini stun. If you hit it directly, it'll knock you on your butt. It's a little bit faster than Reinhardt Shatter, though. That Reinhardt Shatter like really knocks you down, and then you
Yeah.
take your time to get back up. This one is almost instantaneous. You knock them
It's
out, but
like
they're back up right away.
yeah, it's like a 1 second stun slash interrupt slash knockdown.
Yeah, it feels almost like a McCree flashbang with a slight animation.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of like a yeah. It might last like slightly longer than McCree Flash. Or might actually be the same amount of time. But yeah, exactly.
The casting time, because it does have a cast time where you kind of watch the rock form in front of your hands before you launched it, is 0.75 seconds, so almost a second of cast time is relatively slow for an ability or a regular ability.
Mm-hmm.
It has a duration that the stun duration is 0.5 seconds, and the knockdown is, it says the knockdown is 3 second knockdown, but does it feel like 3 seconds?
It's not 3 seconds.
Definitely not.
They might have meant point 0.3 or something.
Okay, because I have noticed that there's several stages to this boulder as well. There's a direct
Mm-hmm.
hit that will knock you on the ground, and then there's an AoE damage that it does where it doesn't hit you directly but explodes right next to you and still does some damage to you. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
80 direct damage according to the wiki and 15 to 50 splash damage, and self damage too. So you can get hit by this as well.
Yeah. I would like to see him take away self damage from Sigma. I think that's a little bit too much.
It's weird that he takes self damage, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, the boulder thing. Jeff said the boulder, the farther that it travels, the more it knocks them back. So not only does the knock down and it does the stun, but it also does a knock back. So
Oh.
yeah, so like if you launch it across the map and it hits someone, apparently it just fucking shoots them. Like they just get knocked back. But maybe not that far. But I
So
know.
this might be what it is because it says zero point 0.5 to 3 second knockdown.
Oh, okay. So the distance may be
The distance
increasing
by be
number.
increasing the knockdown as well. Because now
Yeah.
that I think about it, the times that I was using it, I was knocking people that were fairly close to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the knockdown wouldn't last very long. And
Yeah.
that's an interesting way of balancing this ability because hitting it
Yeah.
up close is rather easy, but hitting it far away is super hard.
Yeah, and it's like we've been saying, it's a stun and a interrupt or whatever. So you can use it to cancel ultimates, which is I think the biggest skill cap of the ability. The way I've been doing it a lot is to stun like high noons or stun other Sigma ultimates, which is the biggest thing.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you can cancel other Sigma ultimates. You could stun technically like you could stun Earth Shatters. I mean, it'd be really hard to
Yeah,
time, but
if you have to like predict it almost.
yeah, yeah, you can kind of try to predict it, but yeah, you can stun anything. You can stun any ultimates. You can stun EMPs, but like I said, there's a cast time, so it's gonna be really, really hard to like
One of
time that.
my favorite uses for this so far has been deflecting Genjis. Because, you know, Genji gets so
Oh yeah,
bold with their deflect. They just stand in front of you and you just throw a giant boulder at him. You're like, shut
yeah.
up.
I was talking to a friend of mine named Javian. He's a streamer as well. I was laughing with him because Genji can deflect lava. Genji can deflect Reinhardt hammers, swings. Genji can deflect fire strikes, but he can't deflect a boulder that's coming from Sigma.
No, boulder's too
Like how
much.
could he could deflect a graviton surge, but he can't deflect a boulder?
You
Like I
can
don't understand.
deflect a mini black hole, but not the
Yeah,
rock.
yeah, okay,
You would at least expect him to like cut it into little pieces, at least, you know, with the way he's like
yeah,
moving
right.
his sword or something.
Maybe he'll just like send it backwards or something over his shoulders.
Yeah. Well, how does this ability feel for you? Because even though it has a cast time and a distance, I personally found myself very entertained by this ability.
I like it a lot. I think one of the frustrating parts with it though is it slows you down when you're trying to use it. So like if you're trying to stun someone around a corner, it's not like you can start the animation while you're around the corner because you might just hit the wall in front of you. You have to actually be like moving where you want to shoot it ahead of time.
Oh yeah,
Um, because you
and
get
you have to
slowed.
predict it a
So
little bit too, because the projectile itself is rather slow.
yeah, yeah. I know it's really good to learn how to use that ability effectively in the Sigma mirror matchup. Because whenever they're using their like absorb ability, you can stun them and knock them down, and they can't eat it. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
huge. It happened to me a couple times when I was trying the hero
mm,
playing against another Sigma. You do your kinetic grasp, and instead of them using their regular fire, they just throw the rock at you, and you're like,
yeah,
no, damn it.
yeah, exactly. Like learning the tempo between Sigma versus Sigma is a big thing at high ranks, and I noticed playing against some good Sigmas is they'll learn how to block my rock. Like they'll predict it coming and they'll throw their shield out as quick as
Yeah,
possible. So that's another thing.
and that actually is like learnable really easy with Sigma. Like if you've been playing Sigma for a few games, you can start predicting those rocks, or even when you see the rock, you can just kind of hold your shield right there and
Yep,
you will reliably block it.
yep, exactly.
um the last ability, the coolest ability of all, I call it the lifting ability, is the Graviton Flux. A little similar to Graviton Surge, actually. It's similar to Doomfist ult in the way that you place it. It's a big circle on the ground. While when you activate the ability, you're able to levitate, and just like when you are on Valkyrie on Mercy, you can hold your spacebar to keep floating up, which I didn't realize at first. I was using the ability and I was just slightly levitating, and I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was it, that you would just gain like a little bit of ground.
Yeah.
But later I realized, no, you can keep holding spacebar and you can fly really high, like really, really high with this thing.
Yeah, and I think you can actually so with his dude, his ultimate is so crazy. There's so many different parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you activate his ultimate immediately, let's say like you start his ultimate and then you activate the circle immediately, I think you can still fly for the remainder of the duration of the ultimate.
Yeah, even
Um
after you cast it, you can fly, you can float for a little bit longer
like five
because
seconds or something. somewhere around
Yeah.
there.
While people are in the air and you're levitating them, you can still float. And when you throw them into the sky
Hmm.
or into the ground, you can still float for a little bit, like a lingering float almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, you float for a long time with this ultimate, and it has come in handy a few times. On game night, a creative listener decided to hide in a corner with Reinhardt and do the good bumper play where he just like charges you from behind, and he tried to get cheeky, and instead of like just slamming me against the wall, he
You
just threw
jumped
me
over
off
it.
the cliff. He stayed on the cliff. He just threw me over. He timed it really well actually, but he wasn't counting that I had my Sigma ultimate, and
Oh,
just
you saved yourself.
midair I casted it and came back like freaking Magneto and just like slammed back at them. It actually felt really cool.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, I've actually never thought about that. You can just save yourself from falling off the map.
Yeah, you can.
You can do, you can do the same thing on Pharah. Did you ever realize that?
On Farah?
Yeah, so if you're falling off the map on Pharah, let's say you don't have any like your jump or you don't have your flight and you're falling, you can pop your ultimate, which will reset all of your cooldowns. So you can technically barrage nothing and then save yourself from falling off the map and then jump back up.
Oh. Yeah, if
Yeah,
you
I've
run out
never.
of steam right at the very bottom.
Yeah, I've never done that, but it's a thing that
Hey
you can
man,
do.
if it keeps you alive, it keeps you alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the effects of graviton flux. When you lift them up, if you catch anybody in the area when you cast it and you lift them up, you will do 50 damage just for the lift. When
Hmm.
you drop him down, that's where the serious damage comes in. You will do 50% of their max HP. And it's very important to know that this is the max HP, not their current HP. So if you're able to at least damage them to 50% of their health, when they fall, they will die because they will take the
Hmm.
remaining other half of their HP. So very powerful ult in terms of damage, especially if you can catch a lot of tanks in this thing. You can do some absurd levels of
Hmm.
damage. The range is 35 meters, so it has a pretty decent range. Like I said, you can fly up pretty high and cast it while you're up in the air. There does come a point where you fly too high, you won't be able to have range on the ground if you're like too high from
Oh,
it. So
really?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
do keep that in mind. If you do fly up too high, you will get to the point. It's 35 meters though, so you have to be really high up there, mostly in maps with
Oh,
a lot
okay.
of verticality.
Yeah.
It has a 1.3-second cast time, so again, it takes a little bit of time for you to cast it. Um, and one thing that I did notice, once you cast it and you have people up in the air, even if you get CC'd or stunned or anything, your ultimate will finish. Because a few times it happened where I lifted people up in the air. One of them was Anana that was like beelining to kill while she was lifted, and she sleep darted me, and the ultimate still finished like normal. So as long as you cast it, you're good.
Yeah.
Anything can happen to you. If you haven't placed the ultimate though, and they interrupt you, it will be done. And I
Hmm.
didn't know that. You just told me that from the
Yeah, you can.
boulders.
Yeah, you can interrupt it. And also another thing that really sucks is if you don't actually activate the ultimate and the timer runs out, it'll cancel the ult.
Oh right, yeah.
It doesn't auto cast.
So you
That
gotta make
happened to
sure
me
you
earlier.
use it in that duration because yeah, it's a feels Batman when you activate it
Yeah.
and nothing comes out.
Yep. So some unique things that we could talk about with the damage numbers for Result. Like you said, they do 50 damage initially, and then it does half of the total cap of the character. So like Junkrat will take 100 extra, Roadhog will take 300. Um, the damage amplification. So like if you nano Sigma, that only increases the 50 damage at the beginning. It doesn't increase
Oh,
the
interesting.
the base or whatever. That always stays the same no matter what.
Like the
Um,
drop when you drop it into the ground,
yeah,
that
the
always stays the
slam, yeah.
same.
Yep. But what is unique is, let's say you pick up a Winston, and which would normally take 200 health, because does Winston have 400 or 500
I think
HP? I can't remember.
500.
All right, so he would take 250 normally, but if he pops his ultimate, he goes up to 1,000. He'll take 500 when he slams on the ground because
Oh,
500 is half of
interesting.
1,000.
So it
But
counts the health when they land, whatever
yep,
their max health
yep.
is when they land.
Yeah, when they hit the ground, it's half of that total HP. So another interesting thing is, like, if you do the ultimate on the Winston that's ulting already, and then when he's in the air, his ultimate cancels and he goes back down to 500 health, it'll only do 250 damage to him when he hits the ground.
Interesting.
So, yep, that's something I tested out.
Now
I
this
needed to know.
this ultimate has a ton of uses. This ultimate is CC, so it's crowd control. You can use it to set up kills with your team, right? Any
Hmm.
character that is lifted up is just an easy target. In fact, because you can float up yourself, a lot of the times I found myself lifting up everyone in the air and then going for a key target like the Mercy or the Anna or the Lucio. Because once they're lifted up in the air, you get an easy 2 shots on them. They can't move
Yep.
from side to side or anything. They're literally stuck, and you're floating, so you're like right there with them, or even like even further above him. So hitting anybody is super easy. There's no Orisa shield. I believe that Reinhardt can still shield, but again, because you can float above him, the shields are almost meaningless at that point.
Yeah.
So it's easy to pick off a target. Your teammates can fire at them as well. They can still use their abilities, so they're not completely disabled, right? If they have any defensive abilities, they can still shoot at you. But they can't do things like grapple away as Widowmaker or Guardian Angel away as Mercy. They're stuck in that position. So
Yep.
great setup play. What has been some of the uses you found for this ultimate, or any cool stuff that you've seen?
I got my first team kill the other day. I put it on Twitter.
Oh, nice. I think I
It
saw
was
that.
yeah, I was flanking. I had my ult and I was hiding in a corner. I knew they were gonna go through the first Dorado main choke, and I told my Orisa to pull them together, and I just slammed all of them, and they just got obliterated because like they were stacked by the Orisa pull. I hit their whole team. They all got slammed on the ground. Ended up killing like 3 people from that, and then the Mercy, and I just like cleaned up the rest of them. But I know like a really good like generic combo for him just by himself, not including other characters, is when you use your ultimate, do your like standard left click on people in the air, and then when they hit the ground, do your rock boulder and stun them. So like on Roadhog, for example,
Oh.
as soon as he hits the ground, he's gonna want to use his vape to heal up. But you can stun him, which will either cancel his vape or stop him from using it. That's a good way to kill like Roadhog and stuff.
That's a good idea because the rock is definitely easy to land,
Hmm.
either when they're floating up in the air or like right as they're landing. Um, and one thing to note is you can cast the rock while you're floating. You don't have to be like on the ground or anything. Any place you're
Yep.
standing, you can cast that rock. He just builds it up from I don't know where. He just builds it up.
Yeah, just from nowhere, just calls it in from thin air.
All
A
right.
weird, one weird thing with his ult is that when Lucio beat drops, he actually beat drops in the air. So it's like,
If he's being held up by Sigma ult, he will actually cast it in the air.
yeah, so like it picks him up in the air, and if Lucio beat drops, it'll just do it right there. Like he'll just like break it
Huh.
down immediately. So
Interesting. Now that you mention it, I
yeah,
do think I saw a Lucio beat drop, but I thought he had like landed or something. That's interesting.
yeah, I don't know if that's a bug or what, but that's what happens. Is beat drop
Sigma
happens.
Ultimate inadvertently buffs sound
Yeah,
barrier.
yeah, guess so.
That's funny. Um, Alrighty, those are all of Sigma's abilities. I think we had a pretty good discussion on it. Before we close out the discussion on Sigma, what do you think might be some like good compositions or maps where he's gonna shine? Is he going to be viable in every map, or are we gonna have to run him in certain places? What do you think?
Mm, to be honest, I don't even know, man. There's so many different variations of comps and characters that he can be played with, and there's a lot of different changes that have been made. Like Brig is different, so and Rollock is coming in. So we've been
Yeah, right
playing
now
like
everything has been kind of tossed up in the air.
yeah, so many changes. I mean, I think he could be pretty good on like King's Row and stuff because I mean he goes good with Zarya, and even on 2CP he offers a lot of survivability because if you do like Orisa Sigma, that's a lot of shield, and you can stop snipers and stuff. So I don't know, it depends. I think what's gonna determine how well he is how like what DPS and supports are played, and then from there we'll figure out like what tanks are played. But I'm not sure. We'll see.
Yeah, right now we're in like discovery phase for for everyone, especially with this
Yeah.
hero. The one thing I did notice with him is that he struggles with verticality, kind of like Ryan and
Hmm.
Zarya and Ariza do, right? So that hasn't changed with him. I think that For verticality maps, I think that Winston is still king, Hammond is great, Diva is great, and you almost have like that separation in line, right? Where like you have your
Yeah,
ground tanks, and then you have the tanks that don't care about the ground. He
yeah,
falls in kind of like that category where like he likes the ground and he needs people to move him around. Like he loves Lucio. I think that's the Metro might also be nice for him. He's a little bit less kind of like ground bound than Ryan and Zarya and Orisa, just because he can place his barrier in so many different angles and he can actually
yeah,
like move it there. But that being said, when you're trying to place a barrier on a different level, it's still kind of funky, right? Because you can't
yeah.
always
The
place it at
angles
the
are
right
awkward.
angle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think a lot of the maps that Ryan are good on, he'll tend to be really good on. I'm super scared of dive. I think Sigma is going to struggle heavily against dive comp because, like I said, if he gets discorded, he only has 400 health and he has no armor, and like flanker DPS kind of ignore his like shift because you can't block your back, and Genji can like dash through you, and Winston just obliterates Sigma because he kills himself, and also Winston's Tesla thing doesn't it ignores his little Matrix ability too. So
Yeah.
I
I mean,
I think he'll just be
even
really weak
Widowmaker
versus
is
dive.
kind of scary against Sigma, right? Because if you're not paying
Yeah, because
attention to him, a headshot is like
that's basically
four
you're dead.
thirds of your or 3/4 of your health.
Yeah. So, like I said, it depends. Like, I think what's gonna happen is people are gonna shift towards dive comp, and if dive comp can be stopped, then Sigma will. It's gonna be like, okay, where does Sigma come into play? Like, can Sigma stop bunker? If he can, then Sigma might be really good. And if Sigma starts getting played, then people will start playing dive comp. So then I don't know.
So we
We'll
entered the
see what happens.
cycle.
Yeah, it might be a first like real good meta where it's like a rotation of comps that are good against each other instead of just like one comp is the best and that's it.
I'm sure eventually one comp will rise to the top, like it always
Yeah, I'm
does. But
sure.
yeah, right now we're in kind of like that discovery cycle. It's pretty exciting. And there's a lot to be discovered with 222, like you said, the changes with Brigitte, and a bunch of like these pad changes too. I'm glad that the Moira change got reverted. I know that the people who listened to the previous episode know how vocal about I was about this change because it was the
Yeah.
only change in that patch that was just not in line with the other ones. All the other ones are such great balance changes, and then you have this Moira patch. It's like, hey, you
It
you
came out of
want
nowhere.
skill shots? Never mind.
Yeah. I kind of really like how where Moira's at cuz I feel like in the lower ranks she's thriving really really well.
Mm-hmm.
She's such a good support character for like just players in general that maybe they're not really good at on Anna. Like Moira's just
Right.
she can defend herself. She is she's just a good character for like just the lower ranks and in higher ranks she's not really used that much. But I saw today in pro play, they now introduced 222. You were watching that with me, to Overwatch League. People are playing Moira in
Oh
Overwatch League,
yeah.
which is that surprised me a lot, and I didn't realize. But yeah, she was actually getting a lot of play. They're playing like dive comp with her with like Reaper and stuff, and yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, the Moira has definitely seen a resurgence, and for so long she's been kind of categorized as like that lower elo character, right? Like, oh, that's what you
Hmm.
play at the lower ranks. That maybe some people have discounted her completely, but as you know, with Overwatch, things are constantly evolving, and right now, the things that are being run, kind of favor Moira a little bit because she does have that mobility. Her coalescence doesn't care about shields, which is a
Hmm.
huge asset in that bunker kind of meta. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I agree with you that she's in a good spot. And again, just more tools to play with. I think that Baptiste is also in a great spot. Anna feels good. Like the full support roster right now, I think that feels really good in general. Like every hero has
Yeah,
like their own little niche that you can find useful.
yeah, supports are great right now. I think it's like the best like
It's
state
the best
support as
support meta
ever.
that we've ever had. Yeah,
You can get away with playing so many different things. It's
yeah. All of
really
them,
good.
all of them fit depending on what you're running.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that being said, I think that this was a great discussion with Sigma. Do you want to have any last words about the character?
I love the character. It was a great release, great fun character skill wise. I think I really appreciate that I don't think he's gonna be extremely busted. Like he's not gonna be like a brig on release or Like he's not going to be oppressive. I think he's a good character. He will be seeing play. I'm not sure if he'll be meta yet. We'll see. I'm sure people will test him out, but we'll see how things turn out. But overall, just a fantastic character. I think. What was the character before this? Ash. I
The
believe
character
so.
before this was
Or
Baptiste,
is,
and then before
oh,
that
it's
it was Ash.
Baptiste.
Hmm.
Baptiste. Yeah, the last two characters were pretty good, and this one was really good too. I'm excited to see like what else would they come up with in the future. So they've been
Yeah,
doing a good
I
job lately.
couldn't agree more. I feel like the past few characters have been very interactive, and the way you play them is actually really fun. I feel like there was a few characters here and there, like Orisa and Brigitte, that were kind of came back to back with each other. That I
Hmm.
personally never resonated a lot with them, especially with Orisa. I don't know what it is about her, but even though she's an amazing character, her playstyle is just very dull, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So getting a tank like Sigma, which is very interactive, and you're constantly, having to weigh your options. You're changing your shield placement. You're firing giant boulders that require timing, and like your primary fire already, it's like super. It requires a lot of focus, right? Like you're thinking about angles and distance.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I personally find the game or the character really rewarding to play, especially once you start getting the hang of it. So keep it up, Blizzard. Keep more of these coming.
Yeah. I think it might pull some of the DPS players over to tank, maybe. Hopefully.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
I'm mostly a DPS player, and I think that I don't gravitate to tanks usually because of that. Like the playstyle is so different from
hmm.
DPS, especially if you go into Ryan or Rissa. Sometimes if you're in like Zarya and Hog, you still get kind of like
Yep.
that DPS feel, but not as much, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, that's a great discussion, man. Do you want to tell people where they can find you when you're not over here talking about strategy?
Yeah. Just go to streamerlinks.com/PvPX, and that'll have everything for all my socials. It'll have my Twitch, my YouTube, my Discord, Twitter, all that stuff. But like I said before, right now I'm probably streaming like 50-50 Overwatch and Apex. My YouTube channel is primarily it's like 95% Overwatch content. And if you tune into my streams, I usually play like any character. I'm pretty confident on any character in the game. I actually just finished like a month ago. I did a unranked to GM Rainbow challenge. I don't know if you saw that
Rainbow
or not.
challenge. Oh man,
Yeah,
this challenge is getting more intense every time.
yeah, I did. So what I did was I played every character in the game equal time, unranked to GM. So I had the same amount of time played on every character, and I got GM. It took like 2 days or something, or 3 days. I'm not sure.
Nice. Very good.
That's pretty
Absolutely
cool.
go check out this man. He is a beast at everything he plays. Like I've literally watched him play every role at GM level, and he gets top 500 consistently every season. It's a pleasure watching him play characters like Junkrat, definitely an innovator in that hero. I think a lot of people have learned from you.
That's my
Um,
favorite.
yeah, that's
If
what
it's
he
not
got known
obvious.
for. And if you
Yeah.
guys are into other games like Apex Legends, this guy is also super fun to watch in that game. I've seen like the nades that you get in that thing. They're super sick, dude. So
Yeah.
just in general, if you guys are looking for really high level gameplay in both of those games, check out PvP. I know that I check you out regularly. I learn a lot from you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate. I've had a lot of people come over and say like, "Hey, I heard you on Omnic Lab," and they say hi in my chat and stuff. I appreciate the community that you guys have, and when people stop by and say that, it's pretty awesome.
Awesome,
So yeah,
making me proud,
appreciate you guys
guys.
having me.
Making me
Yep.
proud. Keep it up.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. Yep.
Absolutely. Let's close out giving a special thanks to our diamond sponsors, the Top Score Solutions, Refire, Bunk Plays, Meow Meow, Shazir, Shefford, Crimson Fail, Roger B, Chris the Player, Tragic Sack, Funkstar, Cohen D, David B, and Keith. Thanks for joining the team and thanks for supporting the show. If you guys want to find all the links in the show, you can go to omniclab.com. There's all of our archives, episodes, and everything else you might want to find. And if you want to find me personally, you can do so over on Twitter at iPlayGames. That's spelled APLAI Games. Thank you guys for coming, and you'll have a good night.